Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
This episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Didn't file with TurboTax last year? That's in the past. Now, Taxes is getting the TurboTax app and filing your own taxes for free if you didn't file with them last year. File by February 18th. All tax forms, all 100% free. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. New filers and filers who didn't use TurboTax last year only must start and file your own taxes in-app by February 18th. Excludes TurboTax Live. Full terms at TurboTax.com.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise Podcast. It's time to remember this crap with Mike Donahue. And Mike, tonight we're going to talk about the New England Patriots. Do you remember, can you list all of the teams the Bears have beaten in the Super Bowl?
Give me a minute. I believe I can hazard a guess, but I don't want to really embarrass myself. So,
number one,
I'll refrain.
The New England Patriots. End of list. But it's always fond memories whenever the Bears play the Patriots, and you can picture Tony Eason being crumpled up into a ball, and Steve Grogan with that weird neck brace coming in and getting crumpled into a ball, and Walter Payton fumbling. Right. Giving them the only points they. Do you think they would? Do you think they would have shut them out had Walter not fumbled and given them the easy field goal early in the game?
Like, would they be more inclined to prevent the late garbage touchdown from Steve Grogan to Stanley Morgan, which would make it, like, at that point, I don't know, 39-10, but maybe. I mean, that is how the Super Bowl started. Bears get the ball and Sweetness fumbles in deep in their own territory, and the defense punches the Patriots in the face 3 times and they kick a field goal, and then that was the only lead that they had. They scored a touchdown when it was like 37 to whatever, but yeah, maybe.
Don't you think though that if don't you think though that if they got to the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl and hadn't given up any points, considering they hadn't given up any points in the playoffs, that they would have said, fuck it, nobody's scoring?
Yep. Right. I think they were willing to maybe show a little bit of graciousness to, like, at that point, Grogan was not even the starting quarterback, an old veteran. Stanley Morgan was a veteran. I just think, yeah, all right, well, you already got the cheap 3, score a fucking touchdown, whatever. We've been clowning you all day. Yeah, I just think
the '85 Bears were petty in a good way, and that would have been a big deal. Like, the starters wouldn't even want to have left the field. Like, nope,
not on Buddy's last day.
Sorry, Reggie Phillips, you don't get to play. Get your interception for a touchdown. Well, Henry Wagner wouldn't have got his safety.
Yeah, or Jim Morrissey, whose number would be retired a few years after the Super Bowl, returning an interception and getting tackled at the 1 yard line. But the interesting thing is, it's funny. It's funny that you start at the Super Bowl because that is the nexus of such a touchstone. But I would say if you're under 30, it's got to be kind of odd to hear us talk about the Patriots like that. And then, of course, similarly, if you're, if you don't remember 85, it blows me away. If you hit me over the head after the Super Bowl, right, on the night of January 26, 1986, and woke me up today and told me that after that Super Bowl, that however many years later, how long has it been out? 37 years?
37 years.
37 years. That weird, like, overachieving franchise that had very, very little success, which we'll get into, of course, because we like to, really take the long view here, historically speaking. But that franchise that found themselves in a Super Bowl, they were not part of any sort of a standard bearer of the AFC back then. They, by happenstance and much to their tragedy, happened to find themselves on the biggest stage against one of the most dominant and with all of the momentum in the world, it seemed at that point in time, it was just absolute Christians being fed to the Romans, and even for the next 10 years after the Super Bowl, when the Bears would still be a annual, competitor for the elite, Patriots went right back. In fact, they sunk to levels of ignominy, which we'll also get into in the late 80s and early 90s. And to think that, and then at some point thereafter, it completely turned. And if you hit me on the head and just said that the Bears would not have won another Super Bowl, and they would be one of the 10 franchises that you probably laugh at, while the Patriots are the gold standard in the NFL. They're the New York Yankees. I would have laughed maniacally if you told me that in January of 1986.
So, do you think George McCaskey would? How badly do you think he wants to win a Super Bowl? Do you think he would postpone his flight to an NFC Championship game to go to Orchids of Asia and get a massage like Robert Kraft? If you told him that would be that would set up an overtime winner that'll send you to the Super Bowl?
I don't think you could find a more stark study in contrast between. Oh, you could maybe Jerry Jones and the McCaskies, but between Robert Kraft and the McCaskies. So sure, why not? Maybe George has popped into Heavenly Bodies over at the corner of Elmhurst and I don't know. I can't answer that, Andy. It's a good question.
All right, so we mentioned the great Bob Kraft, who just got married again.
Big news. Very topical.
Yeah. He's like 19, so that's great. I'm sure it's love.
All right, so last week we discussed Jack Kent Cooke and his young bride, and now there's Bobby Kraft.
It is funny though, right? So like his wife, was it Myra? Was like kind of like the first lady of Boston, and because of all the success, and she was very charitable, and everybody loved her, and he loved her, and then she died, and then he immediately just started dating like 20-year-olds.
Right, just letting it hang out. Doesn't even care. Embarrassing his kids, probably. I'm sure he had kids. If he did, I'm sure they're like, oh, Jesus.
So they were originally owned by the Sullivan family. Because if you're in Boston, they were in Boston at the beginning, proper.
Just second week in a row, we're discussing a franchise whose roots belong in Beantown.
They were owned by Billy Sullivan. Billy Sullivan.
Of course. What more of a Boston Irish sort of a name can you get?
I don't know if it's Billy. Isn't it one of Billy's kids? Isn't there the famous shot of Matt Millen punching him in the face after a playoff game?
I was waiting if you're going to spring it on me, but it was the very first thing I think about, literally. And I revisited this on the internet a couple years ago, is Google it, kids. And this actually ties back to 85, so relevant. Pat Sullivan, I believe, was the third generation sort of owner. I think he was the GM. I think this is one of these families that actually, I don't know if they were much of a football playing family. We knew they were rich. They owned an AFL franchise. And I feel like this one of these Sullivans was like a GM. He wasn't just like, part of the family. But in 85, this is after his team won. They stunned the Raiders, and this in some effect leads to the Super Bowl 20. Upset the erstwhile perennially. This is kind of what I referred to also, where the Patriots were not an annual presence for the AFL elite. The Raiders were. And somehow the fluky Raiders the fluky Patriots upset the Raiders in a playoff game. And after the game, total, like, I feel like in my head, Crane Kenny doppelganger.
Yeah, he looks just like him. I'm looking at a picture of him right now.
Pat Sullivan, caught up in the exuberance of the moment, it decides it's a good idea to fucking talk shit to a future Hall of Fame linebacker, fully pad-wearing Matt Millen, and paid a very hilarious consequence. That's it.
He really does look like Crane.
There's some intrepid photographer that really got jobbed out of a fucking Nobel Prize for a photograph that easy to find. It only took you a few seconds.
Pat said Millen hit him with his helmet, but we're looking at the picture, and it's just finished his swinging, and it's all fist. His helmet's in the other hand.
That allegation deserves another punch to the face. Can you imagine Matt Millen going, that motherfucker thinks I had to hit him with my helmet? Wow. Yeah, so there's your Sullivan family.
Yeah, he apparently was, did you say he's trash talking Howie Long?
Okay, so
Matt
Millen
apparently got tired of it and said, all right, I'll take care of it. And he did.
Howie, too much of a gentleman. Even though I think we established earlier that Howie told Kurt Becker the year before in 84 that he was going to beat him up in front of his family after the game.
That is a great insult.
It's a different time, folks. Owner's son's getting punched, and now a rare, comes back to 85. Of course, up until that point, that was the apex for the Raiders. It was not for the Patriots. It was not the apex for the Bears. It was simply the return to what we at that point still, even after a wobbly 2 decades, kind of felt was our birthright, right? In 85. But the Patriots themselves, look at their history prior to 85. It's futile. Oddly enough, and we stumbled across this. I just doing my half-assed last-minute back-of-the-envelope football reference research before this, and I remember that you brought this up in a previous Remember the Scrap. The Patriots did arrive in the AFL championship game in 1963, the same year that the Bears had won for the last time under George Halas, and hilariously lost in that game 51-10, meaning that in Super Bowl 20, when the Bears humiliated them in front of millions of viewers, that was not even their worst loss in a league championship game. But after 63, the Patriots, I think, were only in the playoffs, 3 or 4 times until 85. So really a nondescript do-nothing franchise. And then they got humiliated by the Bears. You said there were 4 owners, huh?
4 owners, yeah.
The Sullivans were the first one.
So during the Sullivan era, they were mostly bad for a while, and in 1976, they went 11-3, and they, including a win over the Raiders, they beat the Raiders 48-17. They rematched in the first round of the AFC playoffs in Oakland, and there was a controversial penalty in the game. There was a roughing the passer penalty on the great Sugar Bear Hamilton. That people did not think was an actual penalty, and so that was the Pats always felt like they got screwed.
Yeah, just justifiably, because I didn't know. You made a reference offline about Sugar Bear, and I had no idea if he was even a real character,
Sugar Bear Hamilton,
or a character from Starsky and Hutch. But and I didn't even look him up. But the quick research of New England I saw was in '76 they came off I think a 3-11 season, and they went 11-3, and got bounced in a close game by the Raiders. So I guess there might be some real pain points associated with the Raiders. So a rare season out of the blue, it would seem, in which they legitimately competed for supremacy. The Raiders won the Super Bowl that year. They beat the shit out of the Vikings in that year's Super Bowl.
So for years, that penalty stuck in the craw of all the Tommies and Quincy over there, and
right. The Raiders
probably had something to do with Pat Sullivan screaming at Boston native Howie Long, even though he went to Villanova. He grew up in Charlestown, which we learned from Ben Affleck movies, has the most bank robberies per capita of any neighborhood in the country.
Nice.
Remember, this crap's supposed to be about the Bears. We'll do a quick one here about the Raiders. So Patriots fans really enjoyed the victims of the tuck rule game because it was the Raiders, and they felt like that was the revenge for the Phantom roughing the passer.
A turning of the tide, perhaps.
Yes.
Well, of course, Pat Sullivan thought it was a turning of the tide in '85. So those are two examples of the Patriots having the Raiders number. If anything, the Raiders were the elite, supreme in the AFC. The Patriots in '76 had to just be like this pain in the ass out of the, It's almost as if the Patriots always had the Raiders number there in some sense, because Raiders would usually close the deal against a lot of teams.
I'm sure that's what everybody thought in, what was that, 2001 must have been tuck rule?
Let's talk the same day that the Bears got disappointedly defeated by the Eagles. Because it came home from the game in time to see the tuck rule and all the snow.
So while they were on their way to the Super Bowl with the dynamic Raymond Berry coaching them, superstar Greg James,
real fluky run. Yeah.
Apparently, the finances of the Sullivans were not so good. Merely a year after the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl was in January of '86. In 1987, the bankrupt Sullivan family had to sell the Patriots to a self-made millionaire, a man who loved Remington razors so much he bought the company, Victor Kiam.
A celebrity, right? Millions of Americans knew who the owner was. That's not normal, right?
And a little known, at the time, I'm sure it didn't seem like that big a deal. The Sullivans hung on to beautiful Foxborough Stadium in the deal. They only sold the team, not the stadium. However, they lost the stadium in bankruptcy. And who do you think bought the stadium?
Was it Victor Kiam?
It was Robert Kraft.
Before he owned the Patriots.
Long before I guess not long before. 6 years before he owned the team, he owned the stadium.
He purchased the stadium. That's a long con. I know we're gonna pick through that because that's an interesting period, and I didn't even realize that how tenuous these drunken gambling Irish. How were they always like in bankruptcy? They had this asset.
Well, it does kind of make sense though, right? Because there were a bunch of the original owners. I know that the Sullivans didn't get in until the AFL. Right. A lot of the families that owned NFL football teams, that's how they made all their money.
Their legacies.
The Rooneys made their money off the Steelers. The Bears made their money. The Hallis McCaskies made their money off the Bears. The Sullivans were trying to make their money off of. Well, not the Fords. I think they had a side business.
They were the first. This is a hobby owner.
Yeah.
Okay. Bad example.
And so if you had a few down years, you didn't have any income. It'd be pretty.
But the AFL was different. That was more entrepreneurial led, right? Those are like you need some bankroll.
But I guess if
Lamar Hunt.
if you scrap all your family money together and you buy a football team,
play some golf with the Kennedys and Kenny Bunkport often enough, perhaps work your way up.
Because we've talked about it before. I remember this crap that the stench on the McCaskies is that they're cheap. And
incorrect.
And they're not cheap, but they used to be cheap. It's true. It's just not true anymore. And they were cheap because they didn't have they weren't sitting on $200 million. They had to turn the Bears over every year, and the grandkids were getting antsy because they didn't see any money out of the team. They wanted to sell. There was for a long time. If Virginia hadn't lived to be whatever she is now, 98.
Right, they would have been sold by now.
If she'd have died 20 years ago, that family wouldn't own that team because without her around, the grandkids would have had a coup,
Mm-hmm.
and they would have sold the team so they could all get some cash. And the
And
thing
they
that
missed out on the
changed
TV
it
deals.
was when it started with Fox. When Fox bought their way in '94, is that right?
Yes,
First year
first
they did
season was
football?
94.
All of a sudden, the TV contracts were worth a lot more money, and now they're ridiculous. And now, if you own an NFL football team, whether you were a billionaire before or not, you have a shitload of money. So they have money now, and they're not cheap. They made Khalil Mack the highest paid defensive player in NFL history.
And that was actually a rare good move.
They overpaid Jay Cutler twice.
They're mostly incompetent. They're not cheap. They're just.
But I think a good example of how leveraged they used to be was the Walter Payton $40 million contract. They only paid him like $1 million up front, right? And they had to take some money, put it away, and they would make the interest off the money. And Connie's probably still getting paid off that contract. But they didn't have $40 million to give him. So they had a $40 million contract that took like 40 years to finally pay out.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, so the Sullivans lose the team, and they have to sell it, and then they lose the stadium in bankruptcy.
After 25 years, after being a charter member, and then reaching the summit and getting, my narrative is I like to think the Bears trashed the Patriots so badly in Super Bowl 20 that they were just they pushed them into bankruptcy. That's my story. Because they sold it so soon after.
Yeah, it could have.
But yeah, and the reference to celebrity, because I know we invariably do have a smattering of younger listeners when I say that we all knew who the new owner was because Andy made a reference to buying a company because he liked it so much, and that's what it was. He basically owned Remington shave or whatever, the facial Remington blades, but they were the
Manscaped of the 80s.
It's too bad that Manscaped isn't still providing sponsorship to our show. It'd be a very timely segue. But yeah, just electric razors. And it was a name brand in the house but in the household. But Victor Kayam himself, owner, rich guy that bought the company, that was his tagline. He himself starred in the commercials. That's what I mean by he was a celebrity. So commercials that would appear, all throughout the days and regular programming, and the catchline was, I like the razor so much I bought the company. And so that guy, who most of America knew through those commercials, was now
You're using the wrong equipment. Try this Remington microscope.
That would be the last we'd hear of Victor Kayam, right?
No,
it wasn't much that happened during his ownership, right?
I can't think of anything really, except for his tight end Zeke Mowat exposing his penis to a female reporter, and then Victor basically being like, "Well, she shouldn't have been in the locker room in the first place." Thanks a lot, Vic.
That of course would be still active Lisa Olson, who I believe lives in Australia now. She was a reporter for the Boston Globe. So I think about 1988.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, this almost makes no sense. And maybe I'll bring it up later, but in 88, the Bears had a rematch with the Patriots, and Doug Flutie, I believe, had already flunked out of his experiment as Mike Ditka's lackey, resurfaced in Boston with the Patriots and beat the Bears.
Speaking of Doug Flutie.
What's wrong, Doug?
Mr. Kayam, I hate shaving.
You're using the wrong equipment. Try this Remington microscreen. The microscreen shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. It has two thin, flexible screens. The first shaves incredibly close. The second even closer.
Smooth. Now I know why you bought the company.
The Remington microscreen shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. No other shaver makes that promise. And the Lady Remington, the gift with the money back guarantee.
Going on forever.
Wait, I have a quick question. They're already playing off the earlier tagline. I like the product so much about the company because Flutie says, "Now I know why you bought the company." Yeah. My question is, was he the owner of the Patriots still? Did he ever have to divest himself? Was he still celebrity pitchman owner while he's absolutely humiliating a female reporter?
Well, he only owned the team for 3 years.
Okay.
So he sold the team to a St. Louis businessman named Jim Ornstein. And Jim was going to move the Patriots to St. Louis.
Oh, and so what year is this roughly? You said after 3 years, so 88,
1988.
Or 80.
Of course, he swore up and down that he wasn't gonna.
And just for context, the Cardinals had just moved to Phoenix, or were about to move in 88, 89. St. Louis Cardinals, originally Chicago, were leaving after 3 decades in St. Louis. There was a vacancy.
So he says he's not going to sell the team. He's not going to move the team to St. Louis, even though he's from St. Louis. He's not going to. He's got the trademark for the St. Louis Stallions. Still not. No, I'm not going to move the Patriots there. And he hires Bill Parcells to be his head coach. They have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. They take Drew Bledsoe.
Bill Parcells, New York Giants defensive coordinator. Oh, Bill Parcells, not
Bill Parcells, not Bill Belichick. Bill Parcells hires Parcells. They draft Drew Bledsoe. The NFL basically says, "You're not moving the team to St. Louis." He's like, "Well, fuck it. I'll just sell the team to the guy that owns the damn stadium." So he only owned the team for 2 seasons. He sold the team to Robert Kraft in 1994.
Okay. So to pack that up, because we jumped from like 88 to 93. So he had it for like 5 years,
No.
93.
Victor Kaim owned it from 88 to 91, and Jim Ornstein owned it in 92 and 93.
Right. Okay. So, boy, they really reached a quick nadir there. Whatever this Ornstein did, he did something right in hiring Parcells. I have to say that.
Yeah.
And actually drafting Bledsoe was not a bad move, especially considering the other quarterback in that draft was Rick Meyer.
Bear legend, Rick Meyer.
Yeah, 4 years.
Bears traded a first-round pick for Rick Meyer, right?
They did, 1997.
Hey, he was a first-round pick last year. It'll be a first-round pick again this year.
It was a 4-year gap. 93 is when Bledsoe got drafted. Parcells.
That's right.
It was Parcells stepped down from New York. So here's the history lesson, kids. After the improbable victory, Super Bowl 30, the Giants and Scott Norwood's miss, Parcells retires. Belichick leaves for Cleveland. The Giants hand over the reins to your favorite coach, Ray Handley, and they kind of go into a pisser for a little bit. But Parcells only retires briefly and must be talked out of retirement by this guy that you're talking about. So he tells everybody, and this I didn't know, he tells everybody he's not going to move to St. Louis, but it's obvious that he wanted to. Yep. So when push came to shove, he sold the team back. And while that's going on, here's Robert Kraft. I don't know do we know what his business was? Whatever. He's obviously wealthy enough to buy newspapers. Okay, so
and cheese. No, he's not the cheese Kraft. He owned said media newspaper, Boston newspaper. No, I read it wrong. I believe
Boston Globe.
I believe paper, like not newspaper.
Oh,
paper. He's a
like
paper
Dunder
magnate.
Mifflin?
Like yes, exactly. So
he's like Kith. Yeah. Okay. So he buys the stadium at some point. There's got to be some back deal negotiation there, right? Like he's no dumbass. Why are you buying a stadium?
Especially that stadium. That shithole.
Foxborough, right? Because eventually you're going to knock it down, which they did. Now Foxborough is where the Tuck Rule happened. It was still around, but I think they opened up the new stadium. Gillette, is it what it is?
Yes, Gillette Stadium.
Around the
kind
same
of ironic,
time
don't you think?
Right. Wait, I'm sorry.
Different razor company?
Was it Norelco? Wait, what was Victor
Remington
company? Remington.
Not the guns, the razors.
I never even captured that irony before. That's incredible. But around the same time that Soldier Field 2 opened up in 2003, I'm pretty sure that's when Gillette Stadium opened. So Kraft just buys that. I would love to know more about that whole goings on there. So there's a sort of rendezvous. There's a sort of do-si-do. Sullivans have to give up the team, and Victor Kaim, I feel he was probably either forced to sell it or just didn't feel like dealing with the aggravation, and so this other. I mean, I find it hard to believe that any team embedded in the East Coast would actually be plucked out of there, but it must have been a real enough threat for this guy to sell it.
Ironically, I think it was. I think that the impetus to move was stadium related. Foxborough, not only is it a crapple, but apparently there's like one. Bear fans won't ever have to find out about this. There was like one major way in and out of it, and traffic was always a nightmare. And so when they weren't good, nobody would go because it's like, nope, it sucks.
Similarities.
Stadium sucks.
Eerie.
I don't want to drive there.
Yeah,
I'm not going. And so, I'm sure that's what ended up. Even with their brief flirtation with competence. It's probably the thing that drove the Sullivans into bankruptcy. That and a bunch of drunken Irishmen, so they probably were.
Right.
They probably got some money in Super Bowl year and just pissed it all away on potatoes.
Right. I'm thinking there's got to be a story there, regardless.
Potatoes and Guinness and whatever the hell else we drink and eat.
But wow, so that's just a weird period of time, a kind of a nondescript franchise in here. And so Parcells sort of restored some legitimacy to them, right? He takes them back to the Super Bowl, their second one. They made it back to the Super Bowl before the Bears did. So already the indignity there is eminent.
Well, he gets them not only so there's double indignity, right? Patriots beat the Bears back to the Super Bowl, and then they lose to the fucking Packers. It's like, you're going to go to the Super Bowl, you better beat the Packers. And they don't do it.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
NBA fans, basketball is back. Tip off the season with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can make any $5 NBA moneyline bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings up to 100% with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. With payouts bigger than ever, DraftKings Sportsbook is the place to go to bet on the NBA. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code, or Coid, either one's good. Use code POINTLESS. Make any $5 bet this week and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. That's code POINTLESS, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. 21 or older in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Bonus issued as free bets. One boost per eligible game. Opt-in required. Deposit parlay and wagering restrictions apply. Eligibility and terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/basketball term. And that's the Super Bowl that they probably win it if they can actually tackle a mediocre punt returner.
Was he mediocre?
Isn't that I guess that's the only thing Desmond could do, right? He was like a bust coming out of me. Heisman Trophy winner at Michigan, great player. He's
right.
Kind of has one lucky punt return, and I guess he had another big punt return in the playoffs, but he was a Super Bowl MVP.
Which is nuts. Yeah, he was reborn Desmond Howard because it was, 5 years after his ridiculous catch that beat Notre Dame for the first time in about 5 years from Elvis Gerback, and then winning the Heisman, like you said, and then floundering out. That was Green Bay was not his original stop. That was the last year.
Did
it's funny
he start the Browns?
Oakland, I thought. The Raiders, or no? Maybe I can't remember.
Right. He seems like a guy that Al Davis would have mortgaged everything to get.
He does, right? Because he did. I think that's what it was. In fact, wait, no, maybe I'm getting confused because Davis did go. Jerry.
No.
Wasn't the Raiders?
He got drafted by the Reds, but I call them that because they were the Redskins. Fourth
okay.
overall pick.
In 1992, right? The 92 draft.
92 draft, fourth overall pick. Steve Empman went number. Oh, this was the year that the Colts had the 1 and 2 picks in the draft. They took Steve Empman and Quentin Coriat.
Oh my God!
Good job, guys.
Face palm. It wouldn't matter because
it was not a good. It was not a good. It wasn't a good draft.
7 years later.
Sean Gilbert.
Oh, that's Alonzo Spellman for the Bears. I know.
Yeah. Then Desmond Howard. Then Terrell Buckley. David Klingler.
Oh my God! Oh, they're all
Troy
bad.
Vincent. Bob Whitfield.
Yeah. All these D-backs that are so small too. Troy Vincent was a good player, but Terrell Buckley, he was a tiny D-back.
Yeah, the Bears had the 22nd pick. Oh, because that was coming. The 91.
Yeah, there was 11-5 season. Yeah, that was Ditka's last playoff team.
I think Alonzo Spellman.
Basically, yeah, it was a bust.
I don't know who the best player got taken after. It's not much. Oh, it might have been Troy Azine by the Bears. No, I guess not. Probably not him. It's got to be somebody.
Well, he was a starter.
I don't think there is because they make him. I don't believe there is a Hall of Famer in the 1992 draft.
Would that make it unusual? I guess it would, right? There should always be at least one a year.
Unless we're going to go down here and somebody's going to get a steal late. I don't.
Well, remember, Patriot quarterback Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick.
Who? Never heard of him. Yeah, it doesn't look like there is one. There's just a shit draft.
Shit draft.
Oh, Dave Brown.
That's not
Dave Brown, not Dave Brown from the baseball podcast.
Not your guy from baseball?
No.
Right.
Dave Brown, the old New York Giant, was the number 1 pick of the supplemental draft by the Giants.
Wow.
Which meant they forfeited their number 1 pick the next year to take the great Dave Brown. From, where'd he go? Duke?
I can't tell. I just know he was their quarterback by 95.
Yes. Just like their current guy.
Is he a Dookie
Danny
too?
Dimes. Yeah. I believe Daniel Jones also from Duke. They should have known better.
So that's the 92 draft. At that point, the Patriots were 2-14. That was it. That marks a demarcation because you're right. Parcells' first year, 93, takes him back to the playoffs for only the second time since their embarrassing loss to the Bears, and they lose a wild card game. But that's Bledsoe's in his second season, and then he takes him to that Super Bowl. 2 more playoff appearances, but Parcells retires again. He does it a second time, although he loses the Super Bowl. In 90. So he wins the Super Bowl in 90 for the Giants, retires, comes out of retirement, coaches the Patriots, and then retires after losing the Super Bowl, which, by the way, first time since, we brought this up last week, when the Washington Redskins lost to Illinois grad and Los Angeles Raider Jack Squirek in the LA Raiders. And that would be begin a streak in which the NFC would not lose a Super Bowl until this last one where Parcells is the last AFC team in a run of 13. But once again, he retires and gets replaced by another sort of a nondescript coach at a time, but it's become a bit iconic himself, Pete Carroll. He was such a guy back then.
Yeah.
Replacing Parcells.
It's odd to see him with brown hair, looking very excited.
Well, you remember we broke down the Bears-Jets game at 90. He was the defensive coordinator on Bruce Kozlitz's team. So wait, where's Belichick during all? Because Belichick, he's in Cleveland, right? Is that what's going on here? While Parcells doesn't have, he might have Belichick in '96 rejoin him for the Super Bowl team, but when Belichick left, they parted ways when Parcells retired, quote unquote, retired after the Giants Super Bowl in '91. And Belichick got his own piece of the thing in Cleveland.
Yeah, he came back in '96. He was assistant head coach and defensive backs coach. He wasn't technically the defensive coordinator, but I'm sure he was calling the defense.
But he doesn't get the job. I don't know if he's passed over by Pete Carroll, because his whole thing with the Jets would be a few years later. So, right? Doesn't he stay on? I don't know what happens to Parcells for a few years.
It's funny. I read the Seth Wickersham book, which goes into this, and now I don't remember. He was either the Kraft felt like he. Well, I think it was. I think it was this. Kraft and Parcells by the end hated each other. They absolutely hated each other, and I think he basically decided, all right, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to bring in somebody from the outside. And after 2 years, he immediately regretted it. But then, so Parcells goes to the Jets. There was the famous
right away. He went right away to the Jets. So he was also lured away. He didn't go into retirement like this time. So I misspoke. He did go into retirement, or a sort of strategic retirement after the Giants. He went right from the Patriots to the Jets, though.
Yeah.
After the Super Bowl.
Yes, he basically quit the Patriots. I think his contract ran out. And he just didn't.
And he probably took Belichick with him.
He did. That's when Parcells had the infamous, if you're going to cook the meal, you ought to at least be able to shop for the groceries, because he didn't have like general manager powers in New England. He got them with the Jets, and he went. And then of course you had the infamous. So now excited Pete Carroll is running around the sidelines in New England, and Bill, after 3 years with the Jets, is like, fuck this, and he quits. And in the contract that Belichick had, he immediately ascended to head coach. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to be the head coach. And so he gave, we talk about all the great Bill Belichick press conferences where he just mumbles and doesn't say anything. He gave like one press conference as the head coach and was basically wouldn't answer any questions, wouldn't do anything. And he resigned. He wrote He literally wrote his resignation letter on a napkin, and he didn't bother to spell everything out. He wrote, "I resign as HC of the NYJ." Then he talked to the media and talked for a half hour about why he was quitting.
Epic. So obviously Bob Kraft, somehow there was a backroom deal, right?
No, there was not a backroom deal. In order to hire Belichick, they had to work out draft pick compensation.
That's right.
And
he got traded.
Tagliabue forced the Patriots to give up a first-round pick for Bill Belichick, and everybody was like, "Why?" This was this washout. He's a good defensive coordinator, but he's already been a bad head coach once. You're gonna have a first-round draft pick. Right. You need all that, and he turns out he's the greatest football coach.
He turns out to be on the Mount Rushmore of coaches 20 years later. So it's true though, and not to make too fine a point on it, it is also funny that he's crossing paths here at multiple turns with Pete Carroll, who himself had also been a Jets coach around the same time. And honestly, at that point in time, man, in 1997, 98, 99, Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll were total interchangeable guys, to like perception-wise. Obviously, there was a genius in Belichick that maybe not everyone saw. He was given the opportunity in Cleveland and didn't exactly flame out, but he didn't exactly excel. 1 playoff appearance in 5 seasons, and it just seemed like, what is going on? Why would Belichick fuck around like that? He's screwing over the Jets and blah blah blah. And it obviously turned. The guy knew exactly what it was. From that point forward, everything that guy has done, it just seemed to be the right move.
And some of the irony was Parcells quit in New England because he didn't have personnel control. 3 years later, Kraft gave complete personnel control to Belichick, and Belichick hired as the perfunctory general manager Bill's son-in-law, Bill Parcells' son-in-law, Scott Pioli.
His own son-in-law. Oh, I didn't know Scott Pioli was Bill Parcells.
Bill Parcells.
How did I not know that?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, and it's also a case of the student totally outgrowing the master, because Parcells had a Ditka-like sort of legend. He had a bit of a status carved out for himself by 90, because he had taken 2 teams to the Super Bowl. That's a rare thing. It doesn't happen a lot. Parcells was on the Mount. He was up there. We would chip away at Ditka through the years, but Bill Walsh and Joe Gibbs and Bill Parcells. That was, we talk about the dominance of the NFC in the 80s, and Parcells proved he could replicate it. So he was up there, all-time contemporary great coaches. And it's funny again to think how much distance Bill Belichick would create between him and Parcells.
A
little bit. Yeah, and that's when the whole, the whole gradual perception of that whole damn franchise.
So before we get on something else, if you want to circle back to the Desmond Howard thing. So he did play for the Raiders. Of course, this was would this have been the year after Larry Smith? Remember?
Yeah, the MVP of the Super Bowl. So they kept signing. Al Davis kept signing the MVP of the Super Bowl,
and he signed.
One guy returned a couple fumbles.
So he signed Desmond Howard. So I was a little off with Desmond's one lucky punt return. In 1996, he led the NFL in punt returns, yards, touchdowns, longest return, and average yards per return.
Right. So, all right. He had a great year.
Fine. Well, he found one thing you could do. He spent 2 years with Oakland, then split a season between Green Bay and Detroit, and then finished his career with 3 fabulous seasons in Detroit, where
not far from where he played college ball, but
in his career he caught 123 passes.
Wow, that's been topped by probably other Heisman winners in a single season in the NFL.
I think was it Michael Thomas has the record, I think, for most, and it's 122.
Oh, so that's not would be the record of first season. Yeah, I know it's gotten up there. Well, we talked about Art Monk last week. I mean, 100 catch seasons were incredibly rare in the 80s, and now
I was way off.
It's only rare if you're at Bears.
149.
Season. Yeah, so it's been blown out. All right. So Desmond Howard's career reception total wouldn't even be the all-time single season record.
However, so Desmond Howard's career 1,597 yards. Make him the third. He'd be third on the Bears' all-time receiving list.
Yeah.
No, make that joke at least once a week.
Well, here's what's interesting about if you look at the Patriots, because that's our opponent this week. That's who we do the deep dive on.
Can't they play Desmond Howard? I think they could beat him.
Outside of Tom Brady, the other two skill positions, which is remarkable, they're franchise players. Neither of them are from any of their teams from the last 20 years. And Brady, of course, 74,000 yards.
One of their all-time leading receiver played in a Super Bowl, though.
He did play the Super Bowl. I already mentioned Stanley Morgan, the insurance firm, or the
10,352 yards, basically almost twice the Bears' all-time.
Johnny Morse, he is.
The running back cracks me up, though.
Yeah.
Sam Bam Cunningham is their all-time leading rusher with 5,453 yards.
That's
not a lot.
That's the inverse of the Bears' passing futility, to have an all-time running back. Sam was on that 76 team, but he only gained 824 yards. Their all-time leading running back had one season of 1,000 yards, and it was barely. He had 1,015 in the first of the, it was the last of the 14-game seasons. But even with the benefit of two more games, old Sam never reached the heights of 1,000-yard season. And that is the Patriots' all-time leading rusher. I think this all kind of leads back to Belichick, too, in a way. Like, 'cause remember, like, he would use guys like Kevin Falk. He would have, like, Troy Brown going both ways. Like, the ideal coach. He's just utilitarian. He's practical. He's just taking pieces and making it work.
They picked Corey Dillon up off the scrap heap and got a huge year out of him.
Picked up Randy Moss at the end of his career for that undefeated team.
Yeah, but from Oakland, where he had just kind of been going through the motions, and he gets to New England and had one of the most ridiculous seasons of all time. Yeah.
And that includes his rookie year in '98 with Minnesota, which was ridiculous. So yeah, like they win all these Super Bowls, and yet their all-time leading rushers is the guy who last played when like most of those running backs weren't even born.
That if Sam Cunningham had played his whole career for the Bears, he would have been the 5th all-time leading rusher for the Bears.
In your face.
Behind,
it's not.
He would have only come in a cool 11,000 yards behind Walter Payton.
Sweetness, yeah. What is it with the Bears again? It's Peyton, Forte, Anderson, Sayers? No.
Rick Caceres.
Oh, yeah. We brought up Rick Caceres.
In almost twice as many games as Gale. Has 600 more yards.
It was Caceres'
600 more yards in 53 more games. He ran for 600 more yards than Gale.
It was Caceres. It was Caceres' mark that Peyton broke while we watched the Bob Costas Johnny Morris game in '79 that made Peyton the Bears' all-time leading rusher. Or he was close to breaking it. I think he, sometime thereof. Yeah. But that's
like 8,000 yard seasons later, he retired.
Right. Exactly. Good point. But yeah, that's kind of a fascinating thing with the Patriots. It says a lot about Brady, but it says a lot about Belichick. Here's the question, right? Because Brady's won a Super Bowl without Belichick, and Belichick has struggled. So, where does that put the fulcrum? I mean, I'm ready to hand it to Belichick as just one of. How could you not?
Oh, I don't think that.
Great quarterback. No great quarterback. Brady was a 6th-round draft pick.
Yeah, I don't think there's an argument about who was a better coach, Bill Parcells or Bill Belichick. I think the argument is Bill Belichick the greatest coach of all time?
Oh, I didn't mean that. If I misspoke, I might have said Parcells.
Oh, you mean would Parcells have won? Could Parcells have won a Super Bowl without Belichick? Is that basically what you're asking?
No, I wasn't, but that's a valid question when you think about it, because he didn't win anything without him, right? Yep. But that's the thing. That was because Belichick was a defensive coordinator. What makes Belichick incredible is how much he coaches all of it now. right? He's not known for offensive innovation, but he doesn't delegate. He does, but I know he's got his proteges, Josh McDaniels. He's had his guys that come through, but I don't know.
Belichick is the rare. I don't think he played college football, right? Didn't he play lacrosse at Williams? I don't think he played college football. Now, his dad was a football coach at the Naval Academy, so he grew up around it.
Yep.
But he literally could coach, and probably has at some point in his NFL career. He could coach every position on the field.
He's just a guy that's
absolutely. And it's happened before, right? Like, they had one year they didn't replace. I forget who left. They didn't replace an offensive coordinator. He just coordinated the offense, and
that's what I'm saying. That he actually
right now their offense is being run by their former special teams coach and their former defensive coordinator. The two bums who recycled back. Joe Judge and Matt Patricia are the offensive coordinators, joint offensive coordinator for the Patriots. I guarantee you that's they're drawing up the game plan, and then Bill's taking a red pen to it, and then that's the one they use.
He basically earned his keep. He paid his bills. He fed his family as a defensive coordinator until he could. Once he was a head coach, it was like he's not going to be defined as Bill Walsh was a head coach, but an offensive guru, and he's so much more than what his ascension brought him to be.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
He had Doug Flutie fucking make the first drop kick in 40 years,
yep.
20 years ago.
Just to basically entertain himself.
How do you not like that, right? And he fucking wears hoodies, and he's weird and quiet and gruff and
right. Well, reporters talk about the fact he had the press conference today. I've been recording this on Wednesday. He had his normal coach's press conference where, without notes, he goes up every week and he gives a detailed scouting report of the opponent for the week, and he mentions 50 or 30 different players, and it says only nice things about all of them. Every team they play is really good. Basically, you're not getting any locker room material out of Bill. Bill's basically telling, oh no, I mean, and he finds a way to be actually right about it. He talks about the Bears, a lot of explosive plays. They have the most explosive plays in the NFL, but they don't ever score on them, and he talks about, Justin Fields and, how they run running plays or passing plays that he basically turns into running plays, and you're defending it like a pass play, and it's a tremendous advantage. He goes on and on about all this stuff. But reporters get kind of, I think, bored by it. And he hates to answer routine football, week-to-week routine football questions. If they ask him an injury update on a player, he's not going to give them an answer.
Well,
but then every once in a while, a reporter will ask him some historical question about the NFL, and he will go on for 15 minutes, and he gets all excited to talk about it because he loves that shit. And if he ever wanted to do it, he would be a really good announcer. He's never going to want to do it.
He's like the Greg Maddux of football.
Yes, Greg, the guy who needs to write the book and will never write the book.
Right. Belichick will probably never write a book either. Parcells has written 3. Belichick's
So even to the point where the NFL, for the 100th anniversary, did their series of shows, the NFL Network, the 100 Greatest Players in NFL History. It was hosted by Rich Eisen, and it was co-hosted by Bill Belichick. And he loved it because they went back to Bronco Nagurski, and the older the players were, the more he wanted to talk about them.
Oh my God!
But then they would have they had current players on, not current players. They had contemporary players on who were on the list, and
recently retired.
One that's really worth watching is they have Ed Reed on, and Bill talks about this play against the Colts, where he asks Ed, he's like, "I saw this on film." He said, "Did you intentionally turn the wrong way?" And Ed looks at him like, "Yeah, I did." And he's like, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Because I knew that if Peyton saw my numbers, he would think I was going the other direction. He would throw behind me, and I would just turn around." And they showed the replay of Ed turning the wrong way, baiting Peyton, turn around, just hightailing right where the ball's supposed to be and intercepting it. And Belichick had seen it on tape the next week getting ready for the Colts. He's like, "Holy shit, he did it on purpose." And he couldn't wait to ask Ed if that's what really happened. And he was all excited when Ed confirmed it.
And Reed was almost spooked that like somebody picked up on it.
He kind of looked at him like, "Holy shit, you picked up on it." So that was
that's awesome. Yeah, wow. I would say that's a real preponderance of good fortune for the citizens of New England.
They don't fucking deserve it.
In the early part of the millennium, when the millennium changed after Y2K, they went from just being this forlorn, randomly decent team, whatever. Just nobody gives them a second thought.
Packer fans didn't deserve Vince Lombardi. Right. And Patriot fans don't deserve Bill Belichick.
Yes,
but I think Bears fans probably deserve Mark Trestman and John Fox.
Well, and I guess my question too, I was thinking more about Belichick and the relationship vis-a-vis Brady, which is an impossible comparison. Right. Which is an impossible comparison because there's two different functions. But like, all right, and the fact that Brady is one without Belichick and Belichick hasn't won without Brady, I think doesn't really line up. But how about the fact that Brady was a 6th-round quarterback that Belichick went with?
That was the point I was going to make. You talk about, would Belichick have won a Super Bowl without Brady? I think it's highly likely that if Tom Brady had gone anywhere but New England, we wouldn't know who the fuck Tom Brady was.
Yeah.
Like, he would have gone and he would have, Belichick liked him right away. Like, made him like the backup, like, immediately. Where on a lot of teams, as a rookie,
yeah,
the backup.
As a rookie,
I don't even know that he played, but he at some point during his rookie year, he was taking all the number 2 reps, and he's like, holy shit, I think I'm the backup. Like, I think I'm going to go in. And then the other thing, it seems so obvious now, but then in the year when they went to their first Super Bowl, he only gets in because Mo Lewis crushes Drew Bledsoe's chest, literally puts him in the hospital. Brady has to come in and play, and the Patriots are winning, and they're not winning because Tom Brady is putting up these spectacular numbers.
Right.
And it comes time, Drew's healthy, and Bill's like, no, we're sticking with Tom.
Right.
Because he never liked the fact Drew turned the ball over too much for Bill. He didn't like that. He knew he was a good player and he could do things that Brady couldn't. But he basically made the decision, I just want the guy who's going to make the obvious plays. Because we can win with that. And he left him.
Not the big play.
Right. And they left him. And then, of course, by the time... Well, then Drew had a nice moment in the AFC Championship game. Brady gets knocked out. Drew throws a game-winning touchdown.
Right. Which means you could technically say that Drew Bledsoe has technically led 2 Patriots teams to the Super Bowl.
And then I didn't remember this.
Belichick quashed it.
There was actual controversy Super Bowl week. Which one was going to start?
But Belichick, I don't think ever wavered.
No, he finally just came out and said, "Well, it's going to be Tom. If he's healthy enough to play, he's going to play."
And he was still a second-year player. That was that was the thing. Bledsoe kind of lost his original job due to injury, right? Which is you're not supposed to do, which is bullshit.
Yeah, that's
Brady wins games, right? They're winning. Bledsoe's healthy, but they don't stop losing. Here's Brady, the young kid, and he wins the first playoff game, and then in the title game he gets knocked out. Bledsoe brings him across the finish line. So yeah, it should have been not should have been, but it's not hard to understand why that was maybe controversial. And because maybe if you're a big, taking the path of least resistance, you might have been like, yeah, well, let's go back to Bledsoe because I can't get criticized. He's more proven, and maybe the hot streak for Brady was over. But no, he went right back to Brady, who rewarded his faith in him immediately. So
well, and then even on the, they get the ball back, tie game,
the Super Bowl.
Yeah, a little under 2 minutes to go, I think. And Madden's doing the game, and Madden's basically getting ready for overtime. And they called a couple of relatively safe short passes, and they gained yards on both of them. And Belichick's like, all right, we're going. One of the great things about, there's something I watched on 30 for 30, I think that I watched on it, was Brady comes out, there's a timeout. It's Super Bowl. So before he can go out on the field, we have to, us in America have to watch some, $6 million commercials. They're standing around. And just as he gets ready to go to the huddle, and maybe even Belichick basically said, all right, well, take care of the ball. We'll see if we can get some yards early. And Bledsoe grabs him and goes, fuck it. Sling that thing. And sends him out on the field. We're gonna go win the Super Bowl. It's basically what Drew tells him. And they throw like a couple little screen passes like J.R. Redmond, and he breaks one, and all of a sudden they're like, all right, fine, we're going to get in field goal range. And they get in field goal range, and they upset, as we know now, Mike Martz was a dope. So that certainly helped. True.
But Belichick still neutralized. Yeah. Mark was an engineer of a very high octane offense.
Well, and part of the Patriots' strategy in that Super Bowl was to interfere with the Rams receivers on every play. Basically, Bill told them they're not going to call pass interference on every play in this whole game. At some point, they're going to stop calling it. So they basically just grabbed the shit out of the Rams receivers the whole game. Mm-hmm. It wasn't wrong. They weren't going to let the Super Bowl descend into just 30 flags. So they cheated. They were cheating. They have a whole history of.
But it's not cheating. It's
stealing an edge everywhere that they could.
It's doing whatever you can to win. You can't fault them, I suppose. Right?
The Rams are convinced, and it's probably true, not given what we know now, that the Patriots videotaped their walkthrough the day before because they put, and this is kind of their own fault. Most coaches are paranoid assholes, and they wouldn't do this. They had put a play in that they did that they ran through in the walkthrough they'd never run before. And when they went to run it in the Super Bowl, the Patriots, the defensive backs, knew it was coming and started yelling. And the Rams were like, holy shit, they know what we're going to try to do. The only way they would have known was to have a spy at the walkthrough.
Probably part of what made Belichick so great.
A lot was made of the fact that Nathaniel Hackett, the overmatched head coach in Denver, after 1 week had hired a guy to be a consultant that sits up in the booth to help him with timeout management,
which every team should have, by the way, at least a $100,000 salary.
And of course, the first team to have one was Belichick's Patriots, a guy named Eddie Adams. Of course. And they're also pretty sure Eddie's the guy who would sneak into things and videotape stuff too. But he basically is the strategy coach. And
every team should have
David Halberstam wrote a book about Belichick, and the big parts of it are about Eddie Adams because Halberstam was fascinated by
Jesus, David Halberstam's been dead for 15 years.
No, that's how
he wrote a book about Belichick early in Belichick's ascension, huh?
Yep.
I'm a huge fan of Halberstam. I got to read that.
So he's fascinated by Adams because he couldn't. It took a long time for him to figure out, to get people to explain what Eddie does. The Patriots were super secret about it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't. Well, it doesn't matter. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But really, one of his big functions is to be like Belichick's sounding board. I don't know if Eddie's even on the staff anymore. He might have finally retired. But during games, Bill could he could flip on his headset to he could talk to the offensive coordinator, he could talk to the defense coordinator. He had a button he could talk to Eddie because Eddie was up in the press box, and they would talk through situations. One of the things Belichick is really good at is most coaches are shit they don't know when to call their timeouts.
Right, or challenges.
Yes, Belichick is really good at using the timeouts before the 2-minute warning. If the Patriots need to get the ball back from you, he won't wait for the warning and then call the timeouts. He calls them and college coaches it should be mandatory for college coaches.
More and more coaches are doing this, by the way, I feel like.
Right.
Yeah.
Because his feeling is we can control the clock on offense. We're at the mercy of the other team on defense. So we need to give us as much time as you possibly can, and we'll figure it out. In college, coaches are finally doing this because in college, the clock stops on every first down.
Right. You don't need timeout.
If you get a minute, you should be able to go 70 yards at college.
If you need a touchdown and you only have a minute, you can get 80 yards without a timeout.
So that's the other thing about the Patriots is they identify good players. Although he's never been able to draft wide receivers, which is funny. Of course, the Bears have one. N'Keal Harry's
running
back. Make his debut on Monday. Yeah, he's not been great with drafting skill position players, other than the quarterback. And he picked him as kind of a Hail Mary at the end of the draft.
Even then, he was the 6th round in his first draft.
Yeah. And so Mike Riley was the coach.
Mike Riley, former San Diego Chargers.
He was the coach of the Chargers. Bobby Beathard was the general manager of the Chargers. Riley had known Tom. Riley had tried to recruit Tom to Oregon State.
Riley had tried to recruit Tom Brady.
Yeah.
to Oregon State.
So he knew him forever, and they had kind of like he'd stayed friendly with the Brady family when Tom was at Michigan, and him and the old man would commiserate about how the Lloyd Carr was fucking Tom over, and basically when it came time for the draft,
sharing snaps with future MLB player Drew Henson.
Yeah. Before the draft, Mike Riley had told Tom's dad. Tom's dad was like, we're hoping Tom gets drafted. And Mike goes, oh, he's going to get drafted. And he said, well, how do you know that? He said, because if he's still there at the end of the draft, I'm going to take him.
What? The new Chargers coach?
Yes. He said, I'm going to take him. So he had a deal with Bobby Beathard that at the end of the draft, if Tom Brady was still on the board, they were going to take him. And so their pick in the 6th round was before the Patriots. And Mike goes to Bobby Beathard and goes, all right, it's time to take my boy. And Bobby goes, no. He'll be there in the 7th. Because Bobby really didn't want to take him. He couldn't understand why he wanted to take him. So they drafted some other guy in the 6th round. And then a couple picks later, the Patriots got Tom. And Riley was pissed. Because he's like, I don't think he thought, obviously he didn't think he'd be a superstar, but he's like, he's a real NFL quarterback. And we can take him at the end of the draft. At the very worst, we'll have a backup that we'll always be able to use. And you basically just, I should look up who the guy they picked instead. Yeah. They didn't do it. And so Riley was apparently like, he's going to be able to play in this league. And he was one of the few guys who wasn't surprised when Tom actually turned into a good quarterback. Nobody thought he was going to turn into what he did.
Well, and then you can say, how did that happen? How did he fall through the cracks? And you can say, well, Lloyd Carr is a dumbass, but Lloyd Carr won Michigan's only national championship in our lifetime in 1997 when Brady and Henson were sophomores. Brian Greasy was his quarterback. So Carr had a cornucopia of quarterbacks, and we can laugh about Drew Henson flaming out and also being only one of 2 people to beat the Bears on Thanksgiving as a Dallas Cowboys quarterback. The other one was the guy that you discovered whose wife was like a porn star or something. I can't remember. But anyway, Carr had a cornucopia. I'm not Greasy. Obviously, sucked and brought frustration up as a Bear, but he didn't have an opportunity. He literally shared snaps almost in the same drives with Henson in college.
Right. Brady kept. Lloyd was in a tough spot. Lloyd's a dick, so the fact he was in a tough spot, nobody's going to feel bad for him. Although his grandson is going to play quarterback at Notre Dame next year, which I'm sure makes Lloyd really happy. Henson was kind of holding him hostage because if Henson didn't play, he was going to go play for the Yankees.
That's right.
And so he had to kind of figure it out. Tom's last game was in, I think, the Orange Bowl against Alabama, and he had some ridiculous game. He threw for 400 yards and whatever.
I believe yep.
But he was, he was slow.
Yeah.
Looked a little heavy-legged. When you see the famous picture of him from the combine, he doesn't have any muscles on him at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of see what people would be like. This guy? Yeah, whatever.
I just remember when Notre Dame played Michigan in '99. Yeah, that was great. I didn't know either of them, but they would come in and out. And that's all I knew. And they both. You're right.
He was basically trying to keep Drew happy and trying to keep the team happy because most of the team wanted Tom to play because they felt like they played better when he was the quarterback, and they're like, we want to win. I mean, we don't care about.
They were smart. They went to Michigan. They figured they were onto something.
We don't care about your glamour boy baseball player. We. Play the guy over here. We want to win games.
So Drew Henson, also a 6th-round pick, but not until 2003 by the Houston Texans.
Right, because he went and played baseball for a while and then finally went in the draft.
Yeah, and he realized I can't hit a fucking curveball. And, okay. So, not a lot of experience. Not a lot of experience in college, right? Because he never really was the guy, so he didn't take a lot of hits.
It didn't do him any favors either. He didn't really develop the way he should have.
Yeah, probably.
Drew should have gone one of those two. Tom apparently did think about transferring. And if he'd have played now, he'd have transferred. He'd have hopped in the transfer portal. He'd have gone somewhere else.
Right.
But back then, they made it as hard as possible to transfer. If you couldn't transfer within the same conference and have a scholarship, that's why Jeff George had to pay his way to U of I because he transferred from Purdue.
Did pay his way.
He was going to get a scholarship.
I didn't know that.
And if you transferred anywhere else, you had to sit out a year. This is the ridiculous rules that they had back then, which they had until recently. but
right
now it's the
They're all
Wild
gone.
Wild West. I think you could transfer today and play somewhere else, like Saturday.
Switch sidelines.
No, speaking of Notre Dame, they really should go find a quarterback somewhere.
Oh my God! Stop.
U of I's got one. Notre Dame should see if they can work out a trade for Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
Danny's.
Hey, what am I? Hey, Spider, what am I on the pay no mind list? Hey, Spider. No, I'm not all right, Spider. You stutter and prick you. That's all I think of when I hear Tommy DeVito.
I think we talked about it in the last. So if people are like, you're not talking about the games. There's another Patriot or there's a Buccaneers podcast where we break down all the Brady games.
Right, so we don't even have to go into like the painful.
And I'm sure we talked about it then, but you remember when the Bears? This is how much respect the Patriots and the NFL had for the Bears. I believe I think it was the Trestman game where they gave it 50 points. Do you remember that the Patriots
2014
the field their field at beautiful Gillette Stadium was worse than Soldier Field. It was just a shit heap, and they just decided let's put field turf in for next week. So they did. So the Bears show up, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago it was grass, and now it's field turf.
Except, who is the guy? You're gonna have to help me out. Remember this crap. The guy's name. It's escaping me now. But while the Bears were down like 42-0 at the end of the first half, and Tony Garoppolo may have already been in the game that early, just to get some reps.
His brother Tommy.
Who's the Lamar Houston sacked? I think it was Brady. Sacked him and then did a huge dance, like embarrassingly, like tries to show everybody up when they're down 6 touchdowns and then blows out its knee on that very turf.
Yep.
So maybe it wasn't so perfect.
That's true. Well, I'm just saying they basically have no regard for the Bears' safety.
No, I know.
We think the turf will be fine. Give it a shot. It can't be any worse than the shit we had.
I can just
also not worse than the crap you play on. So that was before the Bermuda grass that they put in now, and they have a pristine field now. It's the greatest.
Right. But there haven't been a whole lot of games in general. The Super Bowl 20 is one that you hear about all the time. I was at the game in 1994 when the Bears lost. It was a very disappointing Juan Stedian team that would go on to win only the second road playoff game of our lifetime, but not before losing at home, but still managing to squeak back into the playoffs in 1994. But we lost that day to Drew Bledsoe and the Patriots. That was disappointing. 97, I remember going to a bar to watch the game, and the Patriots were defending conference champions, and they just ran the Bears off the field. That was no fun. I mentioned the Flutie game in 88, which is weird that the Bears are still in the thick of their Mike Ditka era, and they managed to lose to a forlorn Victor Kiam-owned Patriots franchise embroiled in a sex controversy. And Doug Flutie came back home to Boston and lit the Bears up. That was just an anomaly in 1988. And that's about it. As a kid, the AFC East faced the NFC Central in 79, the very first year that I was a fan. And I just remember that the Patriots came into Chicago, so the game was on NBC, not CBS. Two things happened. The Patriots beat the Bears, and that didn't make sense because the Bears went to the playoffs that year and the Patriots didn't. But that my brother pointed out that the Patriots running back was former Notre Dame star Vegas Ferguson.
Oh, yeah.
And I was at the Bears-Patriots game or Bears-Patriots game in 82. So I did see the Patriots then during the strike-shortened season, and the Bears beat them. So that's it for Bears-Patriots match.
The teams have played 9 times in the last 34 years. This will be the 10th.
That's not a lot. Yeah.
How many of the last 9 have the Bears won?
Oh, fuck. Well, they never lost. They never beat Brady until Brady was a Buccaneer, as we've discovered. So you got to go back to before 2000. We already said 97. It's 94. They didn't play each other in 91, I think. That was the old style. I think New England was so bad that they had to play a 5th place schedule. Fuck's sake, it's not the Super Bowl, right?
No.
But
it's only one. Only once since the Super Bowl have the Bears beaten the Patriots. December 10th, 2000.
2000?
The 4-10 Bears. The 3-10 Bears beat the 4-9 Patriots 24-17.
Wow!
Bears touchdowns were scored by Eddie Kennison, a 9-yard pass from Shane Matthews.
I just did a spit take.
James Allen had a 16-yard run, and James Allen caught a 6-yard pass from Shane Matthews. The Patriots scored with 4 minutes to go. Drew Bledsoe to Troy Brown, but it was not enough. The Bears won 24-17.
Can you believe that is the one Bears victory over the Bill Belichick New England Patriots? Belichick was in his first year. I have no recollection of that game, and I remember a lot of awful Wannstedt-Giron era games. That I can only say that was in that lull between the Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick era there. I mean, Bill Belichick was the coach, but they only won
5-11 that first year.
Yeah, and Brady would have been on the sideline. So that was a Bledsoe. They beat up Bledsoe, but they were a bad team that year.
Drew was 25 for 46, 225 yards. So 46 passes, he only gained 225 yards. 2 touchdowns, no picks. Shane Matthews game was 22 of 27 for 239. He out-dueled.
That's fucking.
He threw for 2 touchdowns.
Wait, what was the date on that? That might have been the first game after Gary Crowton was forced out before the end of the season.
December 10th.
Yeah, close
Week
to
15.
It. But so John Shoup and Gary Crowton had the offense on that. So there you go. The Bears and Brady was on the other sideline. That's the Bears' only victory over the Patriots in Super Bowl 20. Is that a fact? Is that right, Andy?
That's.
How did we not know that?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yeah,
and we don't. And
Bears
we don't
lost
remember
the first 2 games they ever played against the Patriots, 1973 and 1979. Then they beat the Patriots. Oh, Ditka beat them in 82.
Yeah. I was at that game.
And then they beat them in the Super Bowl season.
Right, and also they beat them in week 2,
and then they beat them in
20-7. Yeah, Richard Dent got an interception right at the
That's
end of
the only winning streak they've ever had against the Patriots, where it was those 3 games.
I'm glad we unearthed that. In 2000, wow.
Bad.
Was that game? That game was in New England in 2000 or Chicago?
No, it was in
fuck. How was I there?
Beautiful pre-renovated Soldiers Field.
God, I went to so many games back then because nobody wanted to go, and I lived in the city. I don't think I would have been at that game. Wow, oof. That's remarkable.
Yeah, this 51-31 or 50. Yeah, the 51-31 game, 51-23 in
2014.
Peak Trustman era, 2014. Here's Tom Brady's stat line. 30 for 35, 354 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
That's a team that quit, as good as Brady is. Come on.
Jimmy Garoppolo, 3 for 3, 22 yards.
Oh, he came in later than I thought. I was at the game in 2010 when the Bears actually went to the playoffs with Jay Cutler and became within a whisper of the Super Bowl in a snowstorm. And the Bears, we went over this when we did the Buccaneers, but yeah, I saw Brady. I actually saw Brady in that game in 2002 in Champaign when he. I'm not going to relive that because it's too painful, and there's already a record of it on the Bucs podcast. But Brady basically was dead to rights, and the Bears let him off the mat, and that was a young Tom Brady after only his first Super Bowl.
That the 51-3 or 51-23 game was 38-7. At halftime.
And that was the week after or the week before when it was like 42-0 at halftime against the Packers. Can you piece together just a more humiliating 2-week period in Bears history than what you just
it's pretty tough.
We've talked about both of those weeks. That pretty much ended Trustman's era 18 months in. So thanks, Patriots. That's peak Patriots there. Bears with their nadir.
I think there might have been a bye in between. So Trustman got to rest up.
There was. On both sides of the bye, right. Oh, that was the thing.
Jesus.
Or, yeah. Right. It's...
So it's good. I got to find this quick. Nothing like Googling things on the...
It's all right. I'll a couple other loose ends. I had forgotten this, or maybe I didn't know who Sam Cunningham was when in the 80s when Randall Cunningham was taking off, but I guess I maybe forgotten or never knew that Patriots all-time leading rusher Sam Cunningham is the brother of eventual Eagles and Vikings quarterback Randall Cunningham.
The brother?
So, yes, it says brother.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe half brother. I don't know, but like it says brother. And I don't know if Cunningham. That would be interesting if Cunningham was the career passing leader for the Eagles, but he's not. It can't be, right? No, it's probably Donovan McNabb.
All right. So on November 8th, 2014, Packers were
yeah, this is when you dig into the trust fund, you're going to make that guttural
42-0 at halftime. But what made me gurgle was Aaron Rodgers' stat line: 18 of 27, 315 yards, 6 touchdowns. Every 3 passes, he threw a touchdown.
Wow. And that's right on the heels of you reading off the Tom Brady 30 of 35. This 2 weeks around that. Well, good to know they're 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Yeah, they give 11 touchdowns to those 2 in 2 weeks, and neither one of those guys played the fourth quarter of either game. So great. Why did they fire Mark Trestman? I don't get it. They never fire a coach after 2 seasons. I've never done it. Oh wait, that's right. We were wrong. We were talking about that on the Bears podcast, and Mike Post-Terry and I both missed it.
Yes, as I try to edify you before we recorded, the Bears have gotten rid of a coach. We just found out why.
The whole Trestman era is I've kind of blanked on that.
Yeah, but now you just
is a football.
You just did a deep dive on that bye week bookended.
What were they doing on the bye week? I wonder. Was that when he reorganized the locker room and the offensive and defensive guys had to locker next to each other, every other guy? That was the thing that happened that year. He wanted more team spirit.
Right. I like it when we make fun of other teams, like Pat Sullivan getting punched by Matt
much
Millen.
More fun
and Victor Kayam being forced to sell the team because he's a colossal dick.
Zeke Mowat. Oh. No, that's not what you meant.
Zeke Mowat. So that was former Giant. Zeke Mowat was in that 1987 Bears-Giants game we did, right? He was a Parcells Giant.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure Bill brought him over.
Well, wait a second. That's a different episode than the Lisa Olson, right? That Lisa Olson hit. Or no, you're right. I got it mixed up. It was around the end of the Victor Kine.
No, that's not right. No, it was right. Zeke must have preceded Bill. Because we found out Jim Ortwine is the one who hired Bill. So Zeke was there on his own. Right. Can't blame that on Parcells. That was a Dick McPherson. Well, Dick McPherson. Zeke was just, doing what he heard.
Wait a sec, the coach?
Yeah.
The guy that was the Syracuse.
The old Syracuse guy who had...
Yeah.
Whose quarterback was the black guy named McPherson.
He's not related to the quarterback who was a supposed Heisman. What was his name? McPherson. Donovan McPherson?
No, that was Donovan McNabb. Another quarterback.
Guys. Dick McPherson, I totally forgot. He was a
They didn't spell it the same way.
Okay. Right.
There's an A in Dick, and there's no A in Don.
Right.
What? Yeah, trust me. Last names.
Okay.
Patriots have had some great coaches, though, over the years.
Well, you started with Ray Berry, who took him to the Super Bowl, but would otherwise be forgotten.
Their first coach, no relation, Lou Saban.
No relation to Nick Saban, right? Who would go on to have some success with the Buffalo Bills.
I actually knew a guy who played for Lou in both Buffalo and Boston. His name was Bill Zavadil. He was a head coach at a high school in Rockford, and was assistant coach at Rock Valley College. And he was a great guy. And you could occasionally get him to tell old AFL stories. He played linebacker, and he had the nose to prove it. His nose went sideways. He was a really cool guy.
Love it.
So Lou was the first coach of the Boston Patriots. Only lasted 2 seasons, only won 7 games. And then the great Mike Holovac coached for 8 years, won 52 games in 8 years. Then future Hall of Famer Clive Rush. No,
nope,
don't know him. 5 and 16.
Hall of Famer.
John Mazer. Now Andy Mazer's dad, I think.
Right.
2 years. Then a guy more famous for he's an interim. Oh, we love interims. They had an interim coach in 72. He is most famous for replacing Vince Lombardi in Green Bay.
Phil Bankston?
Phil Bankston.
We do love our interim coaches, by the way. Still
Chuck Fairbanks.
longing for the day. So he's the guy that took him to the playoffs. So I did my half-ass research. I saw that out of the blue, that 76 team.
Yeah, he was there. Mike Holovac had a winning record, 52-49, and 9 ties. And of course, we love. They used to tie all the time. NFL, right? They were like European soccer teams. They used to tie all the time. Chuck Fairbanks had a winning record, 46-39. Then Ron Earhart.
Early days for
him.
us.
He was like a Cowboy offensive coordinator, maybe the Rams, and one of those guys that Madden would talk about. Oh, he's a great offensive coordinator. Okay,
right, shitty head coach.
Then, fleeing from scandal in
the snowstorm
at SMU.
Oh,
Ron Meyer, who was
same guy.
The Pony, same guy. The Pony Express had everyone. The NCAA had found out that he was paying everybody. So
that was after, though, right? After he was Patriots coach. You're talking about what got SMU the death penalty, right?
Yeah,
isn't that Ron Meyer?
So he went from there too. Maybe he did.
I think so.
Oh, yeah. So I'm trying to think of the. I guess I could be right.
I'm gonna look that up.
Maybe he was a rookie in '84. Well, they wouldn't have crossed paths though. Let's see. Eric Dickerson, a rookie in '83.
He was.
So Ron was.
I think Ron Meyer was first at New England, and then let's see, he's been dead since 2017. By the way, January 70. No, you're right. Well, he was not there for the scandal, so maybe that's a conflation. He was hired in 76 at SMU.
The scandal was him. He's the one.
Wow.
He got out of. He bolted for the NFL before the shit hit the fan. But he's the one that set up the cash payments and all that stuff. I don't know if he set it up. It all happened when he was there, and he knew what was going on, and he got the fuck out of there.
Which is interesting because
while he's already on the Pony Express,
so he's already sowed the seeds for one of the most corrupt college football programs, which is saying a lot. And while that's taking root, he jumps to the NFL, where in a very memorable act of shenanigans against an iconic coach across the sideline in Don Shula in Foxborough, the aforementioned shitty Foxborough Stadium, during a New England snowstorm late in the game against the Dolphins, he brings out an ex-con who was employed by the grounds crew to bring out like a Zamboni-like snow plow to only carve out the part of the field where place kicker John Smith, born in England, was about to kick a game-ending field goal amidst the otherwise blizzard, and he did. Shula cried foul, probably rightfully so. And the fact that Ron Meyer, the same guy who'd already sort of planted the seeds for what would become the most disgraced college football program probably in history, was absolutely cheating his way from Don Shula. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Ron Meyer, not a great guy.
Right. So Ron, the guy that he, in the snowstorm, it was a scoreless game, late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, nobody could move the fucking ball. It was
and he called timeout because John Smith was going to come out and kick a field goal. He motioned to work release snowplow operator Mark Henderson. Mark said, "I saw Coach Meyer running to me, shouting and pointing to the field. I kind of knew what he was trying to say, so I got on the tractor and I drove onto the field."
Unreal.
Said at first no one had thought it suspicious, assuming the plow would go straight across and allow for more accurate measurement. Because they were measuring to see if it was a first down, and he veered and went directly in front of the goalpost with a 4-foot wide spinning brush, giving Smith a clean spot from which to kick. Matt Cavanaugh, future Bears offensive coordinator,
future two-time Bear offensive coordinator,
held for the kick, which was successful. Dolphins had one last chance, but linebacker Don Blackman intercepted David Woodley to clinch the win for the Patriots.
I love that the head coach himself is just like making that, not even like a stadium operations guy or an assistant. So, yeah, you're right though. Right, the timeline adds up. So Meyer, it takes a long time to bring down a college football program. So,
and then the timing makes sense then that Craig, he would have drafted Craig James. Craig was still there to play for Raymond Berry in the Super Bowl.
Yep. Along with Stanley Morgan and Tony Eason and Steve
Ron
Grogan.
Meyer had a winning record, 18-15, and then they canned him. They hired Raymond Berry, who went 48-39, took him to the Super Bowl. He retired after the 89 season, and they hired a long-time, good name defensive coordinator Rod Rust.
Oh yeah,
Rod did really good work for them. They went 1-15 in 1980.
Oh, that's a shame.
That's when they brought in Dick McPherson, fresh off of. This is probably. I don't know. This is either right after he had success at Syracuse or right before. Probably after.
Right
I'm
after.
Sure. Yeah.
They had a really good team with Don McPherson. You said it. It was spelled differently. Syracuse was briefly on the national radar in the late 80s. So, yeah, he basically propelled. He hitched his wagon to his own star there.
The best thing that Dick McPherson did in his 2 seasons as head coach was have a bad enough record that Bill Parcells could draft Drew Bledsoe. Dick went 8.
Wait, Dick McPherson for Parcells. He's the last coach before Parcells.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So his teams were bad.
Wow.
They got the number 1 pick. They took Drew. Bill went 32-32 in his 3 seasons. That's 2 seasons. No, it's 3 seasons. 8. 4 seasons. I can't do math.
4 seasons for Parcells.
Then we get the 3 years of Pete Carroll.
And then it's been Belichick ever since.
27-21 and a playoff appearance. And then Bill Belichick, who, as we all know, it's undisputed, has tied Papa Bear, George Halas.
Let's bring it full circle
in the NFL.
Yep, and that includes playoffs.
It does.
We will not begrudge the fact that Bill Belichick has many more opportunities in the playoffs now,
and the fact that even if he didn't, eventually he would catch George anyway, because he does not appear to be retiring anytime soon.
Well, and Don Shula caught him anyway, so that's fine. And I know we've spent a good chunk of time just validating Belichick's legitimacy anyway. So if anybody, this isn't like Yadier Molina running down some record. Like if anyone's going to run down like a Papa Bear House, at least it's not somebody that took angles or it's ill-gotten somehow. I mean, obviously wins is a pretty concrete defining, but we just look at just how he's operated.
He didn't have to do it with Bob Avellini and Mike Phipps.
Yeah. Hey, George Halas had Sid Luckman, my friend.
That's true, he did.
But he also won championship. He won games with Nagurski and Grange. But yeah, so kudos. I'm not gonna. Yeah, we should all act like Roger Maris's son and somehow pretend that Belichick
cheated.
Yeah.
He's a cheater. These don't count.
Right. You could say that if you were a petty man, and he does. But I think you and I are both of the mindset that, hey, it's sports, man. It's about winning. I mean, there's an ethic at some level, but like videotaping, if you're not going to get caught, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get too indignant about that.
So,
right?
Do you think you could ingratiate yourself to Belichick at the press conference? Say they win on Monday, a long shot, the Patriots beating
right
juggernaut Bears, and you go, Coach, how excited are you to have tied the record of one of only 2 Bears head coaches to ever win a road playoff game?
No, one of 3, because Ditka won a road playoff game.
Oh, that's right, Ditka won a road playoff game, one of 3. And can you name the other 2? And he would immediately go, of course, Mike Ditka and Dave Wannstedt.
I would actually start out because when I'd begun to do my half-assed back of the envelope last-minute research on the Patriots before we started tonight, and I pulled up Pro Football Reference, I saw that Charlie Trippi died, lived to be 100. He was, of course, on the 1947 Chicago Cardinals, the only NFL championship game that the Cardinals would win in Chicago. So I would begin with that. Coach, you're probably familiar with the fact that Charlie Trippi died, and I'm sure he'd have story.
I'm sure he would. So I should know this. Is Halas the only Bear coach to win more than one road playoff game?
Has to be, right? Because Dick
only won the one in Washington.
Yeah. And he would have only, and oddly enough, we should have brought it up last week, with both of them, the Redskins beat the Bears in both championship games played at Wrigley Field, and the Bears beat the Redskins in both championship games played in Washington. I think Halas only won 2 road games, so just barely.
This franchise has only been around for 102 years. That's a lot of great road playoff success they've got. 4 wins ever.
I'm pretty sure it is. I can do some digging, but it wouldn't be much more than that, 4 or 5.
There have been, was it the Redskins? Somebody had to win 3 road playoff games to get to a Super Bowl. The Bears have only won 4 ever.
Right.
Jesus.
Yep.
What a great franchise we have.
And again, there's competition for the Bears to even be included in the top 10 most laughable franchise in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable.
You could find a lot of poorly run.
Which
NFL
I just hope the assholes in New England can appreciate what they have, because that's exceedingly rare.
They're massholes.
It's like what we had. It's like what we had in '85 when we fucking curb stomped those pricks, and they had nothing going on before or for 10 years since. It's like times 6 what they have now.
They've had that for 21 years now.
It's ridiculous.
Well, not now. I guess it's over, right?
The bloom might be off the rose, but you never know what Belichick.
So they had it for like 18 years. Pretty good run.
And they're still like not a shitty team.
No, they're not.
They might be mediocre. So
yeah, I mean that's the hallmark of Belichick, right? Is that the last few years they've started poorly and then he just kind of figures it out.
Right.
And they're not a threat to go to the Super Bowl, but by the end of the year they have a good team because they're like, we figured out how to maximize.
He's one of the greatest goddamn, if not the greatest goddamn coach of all time. So,
I mean, I think no better example of that than them beating the Bills last year.
Remember that?
And I think Mac Jones only threw 2 passes, right? Because it was so windy.
Yeah.
So it's like, fuck it, we don't need to throw. What do you need to throw for? We'll just win without it. And they did. So.
Yeah. So there's that takeaway. And then the other thing I learned is that the Bears have only beaten the Patriots once since Super Bowl 20 in a game in which neither of us have any remote.
Right.
Right. And it happened in Chicago.
I'm not even sure it happened.
Right. It's just like tale of 2 different eras.
The only reason I know I watched it is I don't remember the last Bear game I didn't watch, so I'm sure.
I'm gonna go look that one up when we're done. That's what I'm gonna do, Andy.
You're gonna look for the last Bear game you didn't watch, or you're gonna go find that game and watch
I'm gonna find that.
Why would you do that?
There. I have my reasons.
Well, I mean, Shane Matthews did play pretty well.
Sure did. Oh man, yeah, for some late Giron, some mid Giron era Bears football. That'll do it.
All right. Well, I think that's enough for I think we've had enough.
I don't think there are any stones unturned.
So that'll do it for. If I could figure out how to turn this off, people are like, "Stop it! Just make it stop."
Right.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. That went a lot longer than I thought. Because like you said,
Many of us have herpes.
I just want this to be over.